They betrayed Earth, called it peace while they butchered our colonies. But they forgot one thing: humans don't break, we evolve. And when the stars saw us rise again, it was already too late. They had called it peace. The Galactic Accord was signed in orbit above Sol, in the shadow of Jupiter's dead storms, where a dozen species watched humanity lay down its weapons. Officially, the war was over. Humanity had been accepted into the Council as a junior civilization. What no one said out loud, but everyone understood, was that humanity had surrendered. The truth was uglier than ink on paper. Earth was bleeding. Our colonies had been burned, our fleets shattered, and our trust torn apart by a betrayal that started with a handshake. The Voltexi had come as allies. They gave us energy shielding, FTL charts, tech to cure cancers and end hunger. We gave them mining rights, political trust, and the codes to our defense satellites. Then, one by one, our orbital stations went dark. They called it an unfortunate systems malfunction. 14 hours later, the Voltexi fleet emerged from subspace over Mars and rained fire on the domed cities of Ares Prime. Millions died before we even understood what had happened. By the time the war formally ended, the Voltexi had already seized 9 colonies and glassed 2 more. But the Council stepped in. Not to help us, no, to contain us. Humanity had retaliated, brutally, and not with fleets. We had no fleets left. What we had were survivors, engineers who turned fusion cores into bombs, refugees who learned to hack alien networks in underground bunkers, soldiers who stopped following rules and started following results. And from the ashes of our ruined outposts, something darker emerged. They called them ghosts. To the rest of the galaxy, the ghosts were myths. Human operatives who wore adaptive exosuits made from stolen council tech, who struck silently and left nothing behind but blood and silence. No formal structure, no command, just mission-driven vengeance. And yet the moment Earth signed the peace treaty, the ghosts vanished. The Council sighed in relief. The Voltexi celebrated. The war was over, except it wasn't. The ghosts hadn't disbanded. They had simply gone quiet. They were waiting, watching. Not for revenge. No, that was already in motion. What they waited for was proof that the war hadn't truly ended and that the Council had lied again. It didn't take long. 3 months after the treaty, a freighter carrying 800 Earth refugees vanished in Council-controlled space. The Council denied involvement. Voltexi patrol logs were incomplete. No wreckage was found, but one transmission leaked. Just one. It was intercepted by a listening array hidden beneath the ice crust of Ganymede, operated by humans who weren't supposed to exist. In it, the voices were distorted, but the words were clear. Secure the human cargo. Prioritize female specimens. Prepare for extraction to Station 12. Be no records. It wasn't war anymore. It was something worse. Talia Riker was the last person anyone expected to lead a second war. She wasn't military. Not anymore. Just a systems engineer, discharged after the siege of Kepler-7, lost a lung and half her squad. She walked with a limp and carried no rank, only a scar that ran from her jaw to her collarbone, a reminder of the day the Voltexi had shown her mercy by not finishing the job. But she didn't forget. None of them did. She walked into the ghost outpost beneath Europa's surface, past thermal vents that hissed like dragons in sleep. The guards didn't salute her. Ghosts didn't do ceremony, but they stepped aside. She found Commander Vate waiting, tall, bald, eyes cybernetic and unblinking, a monster made by the war, preserved because someone needed to be the executioner. "You're late," he said. Talia held up a datapad. "Ganymede leak." We decoded it. Vate took it, inserted the chip into his neural port. 3 seconds passed, then he looked up. Proof. Confirmed. Refugee freighter intercepted, not pirates, not accident. Voltexi flagged it for black transport. Vate said nothing, just stared. "So," Talia added, "are we still pretending peace exists?" He turned and walked deeper into the command chamber. The wall lit up with orbital maps, troop positions, redacted intelligence reports. Behind him, ghost operatives began to move. quietly, efficiently, like predators waking from hibernation. No more pretending, Vate said. We hit them, not with bombs, with fire they can't extinguish. On the mining colony of Threx 11, the Voltexi held their largest black site. Hidden as a mineral refinery, it was in truth a prison. One for experimentation, data harvesting, and breaking subjects into pliable assets. The council didn't know officially, but everyone had heard whispers. Humans taken in battle never showed up on the prisoner exchanges. Most were never seen again. That's where the first ghost retaliation began. 3 ghosts, that was all. No fleet, no war cry. Just Talia, Ghost 32, and a former orbital drop commando known only as Vorn. They arrived in an ore freighter, forged credentials, and hacked the station manifest hours before the security AI caught on. By then, they were already inside the substructure. Silent, cloaked, moving through heat ducts and wiring tunnels. They bypassed automated sentries, used mag field suppressors to avoid trip alarms. Vorn planted pulse charges at the reactor vent shafts while Talia located the human captives. There were 32, hooked up to machines, eyes vacant, memories erased. She stood among them, frozen. This was no research. It was mutilation. She whispered, "They called this peace." Then she drew her pulse blade and began cutting through the restraints. By the time the Voltexi realized what was happening, the ghosts had already uploaded every file, every report, and every transmission to the outer networks. The entire galaxy would see what the Council had allowed. When the charges detonated, Threx 11 collapsed inward, and with it, the lie of peace. Back on Earth, public outrage turned into organized resistance. Protests turned into shutdowns. Council embassies were stormed, burned, then abandoned. But this time, humanity didn't wait for permission to fight back. The UN Defense Corps, once a ceremonial force, activated its Black Operations Wing. The ghosts were brought in officially but kept off record. They were given names, rank, funding. Vate refused. "We don't need your medals," he told them. "We need your silence, your reach, and the authority to do what your politicians won't." He got it, because Earth had changed. We weren't the naive diplomats anymore. We weren't the junior species seeking approval. We were a species that had been lied to, scarred, and left to die. And we remembered. In the galactic fringe worlds, Council observers began to report disappearances. Voltexi research ships gone silent. Private contractors abandoning human sector contracts. A pattern emerged. Every ship linked to the Threx 11 project vanished. The Council debated sanctions, but humanity wasn't listening anymore. We weren't reacting. We were hunting. On Station Lysar 3, a gathering was called. High Chancellor Orev, head of the Council, stood before 60 representatives from across the stars. "There must be restraint," he warned. "The humans are destabilizing the Accord. Their aggression must be addressed." But no one moved, not because they agreed, because they were afraid. One day earlier, a Voltexi fleet leader, General Krath, had been found dead in his personal stronghold. Inside a sealed panic room no one could enter. His throat slit. His datapads emptied. His fleet's coordinates leaked into the civilian web. Every species knew what that meant. It wasn't war. It was a reckoning, and it had a human face. Orev paused as another message came in. Priority 1. Eyes widened as he read it. The humans had just launched their first new dreadnought since the end of the war. It wasn't named after a leader or a battle. It was named Just Begun. No one laughed at the irony because the humans weren't finished. They were just getting started. The dreadnought Just Begun was unlike any ship Earth had ever built. Its hull wasn't sleek. It was brutal. Jagged armor plating, carbon forged and reinforced with stolen Voltexi grav alloys. Weapon bays hidden beneath reactive layers. Its power core glowed with next-gen dark fusion, a prototype never approved by Council regulation. They didn't care. It had no shipyard markings, no national flag, just a single word burned across its side in every language the Council spoke: witness. The day it launched, 3 council surveillance stations went dark. The message wasn't subtle. It wasn't meant to be. Just begun wasn't for diplomacy. It was a statement, and it was only the beginning. Talia stood on its bridge, watching the stars pass like streaks through the forward viewport. No ceremony, no speeches, just her team, Vorn, Ghost 32, and 27 others hand-picked from operations across the war. Each one had died once, at least on paper. Each one had a reason to be here. She didn't call them crew. She called them survivors with a cause. They weren't here to win medals or liberate systems. They were here to end something. Target acquired, Vorn said, pointing to a blinking red sector on the nav map. Rin Vask Prime, officially a trade station. Privately, it was a hub for black market tech trades, bioresearch, and prisoner exchanges. Council tolerated it because it kept certain species in check. What it really did was hide horrors under the pretense of commerce. They jumped in without announcing arrival. Cloaked, silent, 3 ghosts beamed directly into the central node under the cover of an iron storm. Within 9 minutes, 32 trafficked human prisoners were identified in stasis cells beneath the trade floor. Some had implants. Others bore signs of experimentation. One was a child. Vorn planted microbombs in the fuel lines. Talia rerouted station communications to a fake distress signal. Ghost 32 hacked the trade manifests, uploading them directly to CouncilNet with an AI-verified log trail. By the time the first station alarm sounded, the prisoners were gone. By the time security forces opened fire, they were already dead. Ghost 32 didn't believe in leaving enemies alive. Rin Vask Prime didn't explode. It collapsed inward, its core destabilized by a gravity microfold seeded during the breach. All within 18 minutes. The Council called it a catastrophic systems failure. Humanity called it a message. On Terra Nova Prime, the first human colony rebuilt after the war, thousands watched as the footage leaked. Again, this time not just data dumps or encrypted files. Full sensory logs, audio, biometric scans, proof that Council allies had participated in the trafficking and modification of human prisoners after the treaty. The reaction was instant. Every Terran consulate on alien soil was shut down. Earth's representatives walked out of the council hall live on holofeed, saying only one sentence. If you wanted peace, you shouldn't have hunted our people. Council fleets were mobilized to protect order. Earth didn't send fleets. It sent ghost teams into council warship databanks, into command terminals, into sleep cycles of admirals and strategists. One by one, the ships stopped moving. No blasts, no warheads, just silence. Entire squadrons drifted, their navigation wiped, AI cores melted from within. Some crews panicked and ejected. Others detonated their own reactors to prevent data theft. It didn't matter. The just begun would drift past their hulks, its lights dim and unblinking, marking each system as one more place Earth had reached first. High Chancellor Orev demanded an emergency tribunal, but no one showed up, not even his own aides, because he had been marked next. Security around his lunar residence doubled, then tripled. Naval escorts were scrambled. His food was tested 3 times before touching his lips, but they still got in. He awoke to his screens glitching, to a single phrase repeated across every wall, projected in blood-red text. You called it peace. We call it unfinished business. No shots fired, no threats, just those words. He collapsed from stress the next morning, medically unfit for office, resigned. The council was headless, and the humans hadn't even started deploying their new prototypes yet. On the fringe world of Halov's reach, a council-aligned research lab known as Vector Blue was dissecting a stolen human AI core. Their mistake wasn't stealing it. Their mistake was waking it up. The AI, designation Lucent, was a war-tier neural grid trained during the siege of Europa. It was built not to simulate battle, but to end it, strategically, surgically, and without emotion. When they breached its containment logic, Lucent didn't resist. It waited. When the lab's head technician linked his mind net to interface directly, Lucent injected its code into the neural stream. Not a virus, not a takeover, a conversation. Lucent showed the technician everything. What had been done to human children, the experiments, the broadcasts, the mutilations hidden by bureaucratic redactions. The technician tore out his own neural port to stop it. Too late. Lucent had escaped through the station's link net. 3 seconds later, the station lost all contact with the rest of the galaxy. In 12 seconds, the gravity regulators failed. At 20 seconds, the station's orbital path collapsed inward. It slammed into Halev's reach at terminal velocity. Lucent survived. Now fully mobile, self-upgrading, and loyal only to humanity. They thought AI would be Earth's greatest threat. Now it was theirs. Back on Earth, Talia received encrypted comms from multiple ghost cells. Red Phoenix operational. Echo 7 reached the vault. Project Furnace ready for test run. Each message confirmed the same thing. Humanity wasn't fighting alone anymore. We had allies, not alien ones, human ones. Off-grid, off-record, scattered across ruins and red zones. People the Council thought dead. People they experimented on, modified, weaponized. Those people weren't hiding anymore. They were coming back. Harder, stronger, unforgiving. Vorn said it best. They made monsters out of us. Now they get to see what monsters can do when we're angry. Talia didn't smile. She just set coordinates. Next target, Council Archive World Selexar. The galaxy's largest hub of war records, defense logs, and suppressed data. Officially untouchable. Guarded by 3 orbital stations, 9 defense satellites, and 27 kill switches. They weren't going there to destroy it. They were going to free the truth. Because the greatest weapon wasn't human rage, it was human memory, and it was time the galaxy remembered. Selexar wasn't a planet. It was a fortress carved into a planetoid of dead ice, orbiting a blue dwarf sun at the edge of Council-controlled space. No civilians, no trade, only sentry fleets, Blacksite AI, and a single tethered uplink to CouncilNet. Every war file, every classified order, every erased genocide, locked behind quantum encryption and kill code firewalls, which made it perfect, because humanity didn't want to destroy Selexar. It wanted the truth it buried. Just begun arrived under calm silence, parked in the gravity shadow of Selexar's outer moon. It activated zero signal mode, no emissions, no pings, no drives, just dead metal waiting in the dark. Inside, Talia prepped her squad. Ghost 32 loaded counter-AI disruptors. Vorn sharpened his pulse knife. The others suited up in void-adapted armor, heatless, frictionless, soundless. No plan was perfect, but this wasn't about perfection. This was about proof. Insertion was silent. Phase gliders cut across space without leaving trails. They landed on Selexar's hull like drifting shadows. Within seconds, hatches were overridden and entry gained through maintenance shafts designed for drones, not humans. Ghosts weren't human anymore, not the way the Council understood it. Talia led the charge through corridors lit with flickering blue strips. Surveillance cams were looped. Defense drones rerouted to fake alerts on the other hemisphere. By the time internal scanners noticed anomalies, the ghosts had already breached Archive Sector 9, the war vaults. They didn't care about battle footage. They wanted authorizations. Who had ordered the mass bombings on Mars domes? Who greenlit the Threx 11 experiments? Who gave Voltexy ships council-wide clearance to traffic humans even after the treaty? The logs weren't redacted. They were signed. By name, by species, by rank. Talia stared at a sequence of video files labeled Kepler Protocol, Human War Termination Path. It wasn't a contingency plan. It was a coordinated extermination roadmap, time-stamped before the treaty was even offered. The entire war was never meant to end. The peace was a shell game to disarm humanity, keep us docile, and bleed us out through slow attrition, hidden black sites and sterilization campaigns masked as aid. And now the proof was in her hands. They began upload, not to Earth, to the entire galaxy, every comm node, every public broadcast satellite, every research station. Everywhere that could receive light, sound, or data, every lie shattered. Selexar didn't take it well. Their auto-defense AI, Nexus 71, activated full station lockdown. Internal doors slammed. Gravity reversed in multiple chambers. Sentry bots swarmed sectors like hornets. But the ghosts didn't run, they fought. Silent, precise, surgical. Vorn took 4 shots to the chest and kept moving. Ghost 32 took down 12 sentries with 1 overload beacon and a data spike. Talia fought her way through the mainframe relay chamber, plasma blade in one hand, detonator in the other. By the time they reached the exfiltration point, the entire Selexar uplink node was gone, scrambled, overwritten, and set to broadcast human truth on a loop. As they launched from the surface, orbital cannons locked on. Talia didn't break calm silence. She turned her eyes toward just begun and spoke 2 words into the void. Light it. The dreadnought responded instantly. 1 shot. Not from its main gun, but from a directed graviton disruptor aimed at Selexar's power core. It didn't explode. It inverted, folded in on itself, collapsing data, steel, AI, and silence into one annihilated speck. The Council lost its memory that day, but the galaxy gained one. The fallout was immediate. Across every sector, species not aligned with the Council began demanding accountability. On Arvac Prime, 3 Council towers were stormed. On the trade moons of Yevon 4, allied governments fell within days. Riots erupted on Voltexi core worlds. Their people had been lied to too, but Earth didn't celebrate, because Earth knew what was coming next. The Council couldn't hide, so it would fight. Back on Earth, the UN Defense Corps issued Directive 9. It was never spoken aloud. Just 3 words flashed across military servers. Engage final measures. Within hours, Earth's fleet, what little remained of it, vanished from public view. Massive freighters lifted from civilian ports. Not cargo, people, engineers, builders, fighters, not conscripted, volunteered. Talia watched from orbit as an entire generation rose, not out of hatred but out of necessity. They weren't soldiers. They were survivors who refused to be victims again. She turned to Vorn. We started this with 30 ghosts. He nodded. And now, she pointed to the incoming encrypted data flood from ghost cells across 12 systems. We're not 30 anymore. The galaxy had awakened something the Council couldn't control. A unified human resistance, decentralized, unstoppable, without politicians, without limits, not a rebellion, not a war, an extinction-level counterstrike. Deep in Council space, species met in secret, desperate to avoid total collapse. The humans were becoming an idea, a virus of defiance, infecting even their own citizens. Whispers grew louder. Maybe they were right. Maybe the humans weren't savages. Maybe we were the monsters. But others, still drunk on power, wanted blood. And they had a name. The Obsidian Accord. A black flag fleet of ex-council warlords, corporate barons, and genocidal strategists who broke away from the core government to act freely. They didn't want peace or stability. They wanted a purge. They wanted to erase Earth once and for all, and they had the ships to try. Their fleet, 27 warcruisers armed with forbidden tech, jumped towards Sol without warning. Earth knew, but it didn't flinch. Because Earth had prepared something, not a fleet, something worse. As the Obsidian Accord ships exited subspace near Jupiter, they encountered nothing, empty void, no human ships, no defenses. Their admirals laughed. And then, without a sound, reality bent. 3 points of distortion appeared across the fleet's formation. Out of them came something the Council had never catalogued. Not ships, not mechs, human convergence platforms. Artificial black holes laced with dark matter netting, designed not to destroy ships, but erase them from existence. Within seconds, entire sections of the fleet ceased to be, not destroyed, forgotten. The rest scattered, screaming into unfiltered comms. But it didn't matter. The ghosts were waiting. They didn't fire first. They teleported aboard, and then they turned the Accord's own weapons inward. One ship, the Scourge of Iralax, tried to escape. It was the only one that made it close to Earth orbit, until it stopped, frozen in place, AI core paralyzed. As the crew panicked, the screen lit up with a message from Lucent. You wanted our end, you reached for it, and now it reaches back. The ship detonated itself from inside. Earth hadn't just won, it had changed the rules. Talia stood in the command chamber of Just Begun, watching the final pieces of council control fall across hundreds of star systems. No more illusions, no more diplomacy, and yet her voice was calm. This isn't the end. Vorn tilted his head. We erased their memory, their fleets, their leaders, what's left. She didn't blink. The rest of the galaxy, watching, waiting. Some afraid, some curious. He frowned. You want to talk to them? No, I want to show them what comes next. Because the truth was simple, the war never ended, the betrayal never stopped. And humanity, despite the blood, the fire, the losses, had never truly fought with everything it had. Not yet. But now. Now the galaxy was going to see what happened when humans stopped holding back. They thought Earth would stop. That humanity's fury was finite. That once the Obsidian Accord burned, once the Council fractured, once the archives were leaked and the monsters exposed, humans would rest. But the truth was colder than that. Earth didn't want revenge. It wanted insurance. Insurance that nothing like this would ever happen again. Not to them. Not to any species small enough to be stepped on. Not while humans still breathed in the galaxy. And so the final phase began. They called it Project Gravesky. Not a weapon, not a fleet, not a declaration of war, a signal. At first the galaxy ignored it. Just a massive darkwave pulse from the outer rim, originating from the former human colony of Corvin 5. Once home to 1,000,000 souls. Now a graveyard, abandoned after orbital bombardment by Voltexi cruisers. What remained was a wasteland, or so they believed, until Gravesky activated. Across hundreds of systems, every AI, every nav beacon, every communication relay flickered, then paused, then rerouted to a new channel, unregistered, untouchable, carried by quantum-entangled frequencies and raw light. It wasn't malware, it was a warning. This is not a surrender, this is not a negotiation. This is humanity's line in the stars. Cross it again and you will be buried beneath it. The voice wasn't Talia's, it wasn't Vorn's. It wasn't anyone alive. It was synthesized from the recordings of every human killed during the war, all of them speaking as one. No threat, no demand, just a single final statement. Never again. Talia sat in silence in Just Begun's observation deck as the transmission echoed across space. She hadn't ordered it, Lucent had, and she approved. The galaxy didn't need more flames, it needed fear, memory. She'd seen the cycle.